I'm late, I'm sorry folks. It's Alex from Infant Feeding. I'm just pulling it up on my computer, so hopefully I can see your questions. I always find it difficult if it's on here. But I'm just waiting to see if we get anyone coming to join me, because we've had a couple of weeks off recently. See if, oh, I can see one person coming up. Now I'm trying to pull it up on here so I can see your questions as well. Hopefully there will be one or two coming to join. I met someone on the wards the other day. She said she'd seen them. I'm desperately trying to remember what her name was. She did tell me at the time, and I'm very sorry, but you just had your baby and all things were going well at the time, and congratulations. So, it's like a call out, doesn't it, when you see it, when they do it on the radio, when they call out for birthdays and things. So I'm just trying to pull up so I can see you all. So all your questions, you put them on my computer. It's always easier when there's two of us, because one of us does the chat, one of us finds all the information. There we are. I hope you've got some lovely questions for me today. I've got them saved up, so I don't have to do all the talking. It's always easier if I don't have to do the talking. So no, I'm just trying to find, there we go. I'll switch maternity voice. Oh, 11 of you already. So I thought we'd talk today about documentation, really. So, you know, because we have all these documents and you've carried around your blue notes all the way through your pregnancy, and I know some of you feel really bereft when you hand them over, because at the end of it I think many of you think you're going to get to go home with them, and they stay here because they're actually a record, a medical record, and they actually stay on file for, I think it's up to something like 26 years, so that should there be any questions from you or from your baby, you know, it gives them a chance to become an adult, that your records are there. But in addition to your blue notes, which obviously have lots in them, and if there's anything precious like scan pictures, etc., make sure you've taken them out before you go home, because you won't be seeing them again, I'm afraid. We also have our postnatal care plans, which I know this is going to be reversed. It's always the problem with these programs, with this, you know, on Facebook, that it's reversed. But this is your postnatal care plan. So if those of you who've already had your babies will recognise this, you'll know what this looks like. And it's a document that's not just for you, it's, you know, not just for us, it's for you as well. So I think people think because we're the ones who tend to fill it in that it's not there for you as well, but it is a really useful document. At the top it has two sticky labels, one for you and one for your baby. And then the lower bit has all the community teams. So the community teams details are on their telephone numbers. And we've mentioned this before, but there are a number of areas where you can call through the day or night for support with feeding. They may not be able to see you, but they can certainly talk to you. And so in the north, that's the Horton, so you can phone their number at Banbury, and in the south it's Wallingford, so you can give them a shout and see how, you know, if you're having a problem in the middle of the night, having a bit of a wobble. They both run 24-hour services, so they would be more than happy to talk to you, you know, as long as they've got the time at the, you know, at the point. But you know, so they're available. And then as you work your way into this document, the first page is all about your birth, so it will have about what time your baby was born, what their APGARs were. Those are the, you know, when we assess them at 1 minute, 5 minutes and 10 minutes, and how, you know, have they pinked up, are they breathing nicely, are they moving, that's the sort of thing we're looking at. It has about how much blood you might have lost, when the baby first fed, and all that's on these 2 pages here. And then we move on to a checklist. This is our daily checklist. So when you're being seen by the midwife, you as the mother will have all your information filled in across the top here, and we want to know about how your breasts are feeling, how your uterus is feeling, so we'll feel your tummy and see that your uterus is contracting well, how your legs are feeling, so that's risk, you know, assessing you for a risk of a deep vein thrombosis, because you are at slightly increased risk after you've had a baby, how your wound is, if you've had a, you know, if you've had to be cut, if it's an episiotomy or something, how your blood loss is, whether you've managed to have a poo, whether you're weeing all right, how you're, and sleep. We talk about safe sleep with you as well. So we're always trying to minimise the risks of sleep with, you know, having your baby nearby at night. How you're feeling, that's a really important one. It's down as emotional well-being, and you know, those that have already had your babies know that you can feel really quite wobbly afterwards. You've been through a lot, you're really tired, and then all your hormones go all over the place. So we want to check how you're feeling. And then we sign it off. And then on the bottom one, this is the baby one. So this is all the things that tell us how things are going for you and your baby. So we want to know how old your baby is, what their weight was at the last weight. So their babies are weighed on at birth, and then they're weighed on day 3 if there's a risk factor, but normally only on day 5. And as we said before on these things, Many babies will lose on day 5. It's very normal for babies to lose on day 5. Up to 10% we're not too worried about. Over 10% we'll be putting feeding plans in place. If you're getting near the 10, we might be saying, okay, maybe we'll add a bit more feeding in, look at positioning attachment. So that's the weight. Then we look at what colour your baby is. Are they a nice pink colour? What their eyes are like? Are they nice and clear? Is the cordon, is it clean? They do get a bit smelly, as they go on, the days go on after your baby's born, it dries out and then it falls off. And it does begin to look quite black and quite smelly. And we check after the baby, if the baby's cord has come off, is it looking healthy? What's your baby doing poos wise? Now on these sessions, Naomi and I have talked about poos so much because they tell us so much about what's happening with the baby. Is the baby pooing? What colour is the poo? We're looking for that change. So on here we have, has the baby pooed, but we also want to know what colour it is and when did the baby poo. So we want to know, is your baby pooing at least once in every 24 hours for the first few days? And it goes from black and sticky, difficult to get off the bottom, then through that sort of day 0, day 1, day 2s and 3. We're expecting it to get easier to get off the bottom, maybe going a bit more green and brown. We call that changing stool. And then by day 4 we want it to be yellow, and if it's not yellow on day 4, then we're going to be thinking that's an indicator that we might need to give your baby a bit more food. So if you're out there and your baby's newborn or you're about to have a baby, remember we want yellow stools on day 4, and if the poos aren't yellow on day 4, call your midwife and ask for some more help and tell them, because they might not be coming to see you till day 5. Because if you've gone home, if you've had your baby in the hospital, then you've gone home maybe on day 1 or day 2, you'll get visited the day after, you go home, and then you won't get a visit normally until day 5. So if on day 4 the poos are still not yellow, call your midwife and ask for some support. So we're asking about poos and wees. Now babies don't wee a lot in the first sort of few days. On the first day we'll be pleased with 1 or 2 wees, and the second day 2 or 3, and the third day 3 or 4. So if you can see the picture, it's building up steadily because the volume of milk a baby gets initially is absolutely tiny. We've got tummies the size of a cherry, and volumes of milk are really tiny, little colostrum volumes, but it is a food and concentrate. But we expect those volumes of milk to increase. We expect the baby's wees to increase, and that's showing the milk volumes are increasing. So the urine should be clear, it shouldn't be dark. And in the first few days you might see some reddy crystals in the nappy, a bit orangey red. If you see those, don't worry, but after day 4 we would want to know about that. It's quite normal in the first 4 days, but after 4 days then it can be an indicator your baby needs a bit more food. So that's the urine. We also check your baby's got the labels on, and we ask you about feeding, and then we sign it off. So that's our general checklist. And then we have a page that many of you do this on your phone, but it's a feeding checklist. So, and actually the top of the page says baby feeding chart. Congratulations on the birth of your baby. So when I said this is for you as much as it is for us, this is for you to be writing in and reading it. So it says here, we've given you a feeding chart so you can help you and your baby get feeding off to a good start. And it talks here about what we're looking for. So initially babies might not attach and feed straight off. Some do, some don't, but some might just lick around to begin with, and then they build up and they start licking and rooting. So rooting is like looking for the breast, moving towards it, and then we're looking, so is the baby rooting and then attaching, and eventually we want the baby to attach and feed well. So we've given those numbers 1 to 4. So 1 is the licking, 2 is sort of licking and rooting, 3 is rooting and attaching, and 4 is feeding well. And this is where you can fit it all in, and we put together a lovely picture of how your baby's doing. So the date and time, is it a breastfeed or maybe you were giving some expressed? Did your baby go on really well? That's a 4. Were they on for a period of time? So we say a feed can be anywhere between 5 and 40 minutes, but it's not indicative of how much they're getting. And then what their nappies were like, so a whole column here for the nappies. And this helps paint a really good picture of how things are going. So we talk about the 4 reliable signs of milk transfer. And the poos and the wees are 2 and 3. Number 1 is what the baby's doing at the breast. and number 4 is the weight, which only comes at day 5. So this is giving you a really good indication of what's going on first and foremost. And then we have this page, and this page should be filled in by your midwives or AMSWs, whoever's looking after you. So here, this is that someone's seen you feed. They've watched you feed and they've signed you off, and they may have said, you know, bring your baby in a bit closer, or fabulous, you did a great job, or think nose to nipple. The sort of key things that we think about goes in here. And then the next bit here is hand expressing. Now, hand expressing is your first aid. So when you go home, if you've got a baby that is not attaching, is too upset, if you can hand express and get colostrum into your baby with a syringe, you've fed your baby, or even a teaspoon, you've managed to feed your baby and we don't need to worry. Or if you go home and your baby is so sleepy, you can't rouse them, then, you know, because they're in such a deep sleep, again, you can feed your baby. You can use a syringe or drip it in with around your finger and get them to take the colostrum. And remember, colostrum is a food in concentrate and will bring those sugars up in the body really quickly. Here is a section that we fill in to say, has your baby had anything other than breast milk? So it could be express milk or donated or formula, depending on your choice. And these are where we write if we put a feeding plan in place. So if you're at home and you're in the early days, have a look, see if it's been filled in. Hopefully it has. And then on a daily basis, we should be doing a feeding assessment. Now, admittedly, when in hospital, that ought to be your midwife, but when you go home, you can do it. This is the pre-72. And this is the post-72 hours. So this is the first couple of days, a few days, and this is later. The reason there are two different is because I've mentioned already, the milk volume increases and increases and increases over that first week to 2 weeks. So the amount of poo and wee changes radically. I've already said it goes from black and sticky through to easier to get off the bottom. You know, you can actually get it off with cotton wool and water, which you can't initially, it's very difficult. Going to browny green and then yellow by day 4, and that's reflected in here, and the increasing urine volumes. So if you looked at this and went down it, you should be able to assess your own feeding. You don't need anyone else to do that because it's all here. So it talks about urine output and what are we expecting, stool output and what are we expecting, how is the baby behaving, how many feeds the baby's had, how the baby behaves at the breast, what the suckling pattern is like. So when we say that, we mean that a baby goes on, they go quick sucks, they're asking, they're putting the order in for the milk. And then as soon as they start getting milk, they have a little pause, then the milk comes down and they go into long, deep sucks with pauses, long, deep sucks with pauses, long, deep sucks with pauses, and you can probably hear the swallowing. It's like a noise. So that's telling you what they're doing there. So length of feeds. So we're looking for feeds to be somewhere between 5 and 40 minutes. And the idea is a baby comes off on their own. If feeds are consistently more than 40 minutes, that's an indicator that we perhaps need to do some work with positioning attachment and improve milk transfer. So that's, you know, that's why we have those parameters on there. And then we have, how did the baby come off? Did they come off on their own, or did you have to take them off yourself? Then you offer the second breast. And then what does your nipple look like after the feed? I've just done breastfeeding clinic and I've had 3 mummies in this morning. And that's the thing I always ask. The baby comes off, hopefully they come off on their own, and that we have a look and see what the nipple looks like. Now I'm doing this because we want a nice round nipple. It might be slightly longer than normal, but we don't want it to be flat or ridged or like a new lipstick. We want it to be a really nice shape. We want mums to tell us, how does your breast feel? Is it comfortable? You know, is it comfortable during the feed? Is it comfortable after the feed? And then are you using anything other than your breasts to feed your baby? So are you using bottle? So here you can see the answers are all down here. So if you tick it and everything's in the green, you know you're doing a fantastic job. If anything goes into the yellow, then maybe you need a bit, you know, you might need a little bit more help. And then this is all repeated on here, but the volumes of wee and poo are going to increase. So this, as I say, is there as much for you as it is for us. So, you know, have a think about, you know, if you've got it at home, go and have a look. Go and and see what's in it. It's really useful. I mean, it's got useful information. The other thing you'll get, and I'm noticing no one's sending me any messages. I hope I'm not missing any. I should just refresh my page. You don't really want me to have to do all the talking today. I'm here to answer your questions. Just check it's there. Sometimes they don't load. So the other thing you'll get when you go home is a red book. And I've put these tags on so I can find the pages easily. So every baby has a red book. My babies are in their 20s and they've got red books. In fact, you've probably all got red books as well. And it's a really good record of everything that's happened. It's a record of your birth, it's a record of all the immunisations your baby has, and it also has loads of information about milestones, where to get help and when to be concerned. So the front page, if you've got your red books at home, you can have a look. We have a little pocket in here. Oops. And again, it's obviously going to be reversed for you, but there's a pocket in here. And in that pocket here, when your baby's born, we put the birth notification. That's an A4 sheet of paper with all the information about the birth, plus sticky labels for your baby, and a cot card if you were given one, not always. So that goes in there, so that's useful to know that you've got baby sticky labels. And then obviously the baby details go on the front. And then if we work our way through, it is a personal child health record. And I know there's talk about them going online, but they haven't as yet. We still have the paper copy. So we have details here of the newborn examination. So this is that exam that's done on the baby within the first 72 hours. So the baby's born, and then they're usually seen here on the ward if you're still here, or maybe in the community. And we check them, it's hips, heart, eyes, and lots of other things. And this is where it's all documented. So if there are any concerns, it would be in here. So that's all documented there, and it's loaded on a computer system as well. We have a birth, newborn, details down that one. That was that page. And then we then have a whole section on information. Get to the right page. There's a whole section on information here. And in that, it has information and advice, and it's really good. It has a section about vitamin D, which we also have in the Off to the Best Start. It has information about feeding, about the leaflets. Safer sleep, and I mentioned safer sleep earlier. Oh, brilliant! I can see questions coming up. Great, really pleased, ladies and gents. Safer sleep, things to do and things not to do to make it as safe as possible. Section about medication, helping a baby child to learn, so it goes right through, because this booklet goes a long way through, and a meningitis watch, etc. So there's all sorts in there. Then there's the immunisation record, and then from my point of view, the next interesting bits are the measurements. So your baby's weights will be documented on a page near the back that folds out, so you'll find it because it's a thicker page. And it has all the weights, so it has across the top, it has the date of birth, the birth weight, and how many weeks pregnant you were when your baby arrived. And then all the weights will get documented in here. And behind it are the centile charts. So we have centile charts for boys and girls, and the boys are blue. And this is where the baby's weights would be plotted, and we'll see if they're following. I know it's going to be back to front, but you'll see the lines. We'll see if the baby is following a line. We need them to be following a line. They can go up and down a little bit, but not too much. So we have one for boys, because boys tend to gain weight slightly quicker than girls, and one for girls. So those are the sort of two pieces of paperwork that you're going to have. This you'll have for the first 10 days until you're discharged by the community midwives, and this one you'll hang on to. So if a weight is put in this one, please make sure it goes in this one. And always remember to bring your baby's red book with you to all appointments. So if you're coming to see us in Breastfeeding Clinic, then get that filled in. And when you're going to see the community midwives, take both so that they can write the weight in here and the weight in here. So keep them together in that plastic wallet we send you home with. Now I'm going to have a look and see what questions we've had. Let's see if I can find them. Just get that opened up. Brilliant. Let's have a look. Eliane said, I'm sorry I was late to join the call. Don't worry, I was late too. There's two of us. So I might have missed you saying this. I'm currently 33 weeks pregnant and producing colostrum. Should I collect it or not? I've read contradicting things and can't decide what is best. I've been very lucky to have a healthy and straightforward pregnancy. Thank you in advance. Eliane, we do talk about this quite often, but not today, so you haven't missed it. Don't worry. You're 33 weeks. I'm going to say hold off. Don't worry, even if you're leaking, just leave it. We don't want to encourage your body to have a baby a bit early. Although we don't know we don't know the likelihood of that happening, there is a small risk. So please hold off until you're 37 weeks before you start collecting any colostrum in the antenatal period. If you want to go and have a look at a leaflet about it, we produced a leaflet and it's on our webpage. So you can look at, if you do a search on the hospital website, OUH, maternity, infant feeding, and you'll find a resource to collecting colostrum when you're pregnant. And then you can also watch the videos that we did. So all on our it's all links from our webpage. On our webpage, you can look at the resources section, and there's a link to 7 videos. And there's a mother who's expressing in the postnatal period, but she's showing you how to express on the hand expressing video. So have a look on that. But please don't do anything until you're 37 weeks. You can have a little practice at 36, but don't do much. Really don't do much until you're 37 weeks. So have a look. So hold off for the moment. And you do start producing colostrum really early on in pregnancy, but it's for some people it's obvious and for others it's not. Some people leak, some people don't. Some people can express it in the antenatal period and some people can't, and it makes no difference at all to your ability to produce milk later. So don't worry if you're not producing milk and not leaking, any of you out there. I hope that helped, and do join us for other questions. That would be great. Thank you very much. Grace has said, oops, it just jumped up because another question came on. When should we be concerned about a baby not following their weight curve anymore? Grace, it depends on where they are. What we worry about is babies going down 2. So we don't really want a baby crossing the centile lines. Some babies are born a little bit heavier than they're destined to be later, but they should then sit on a curve and follow it. So we expect baby girls to be gaining a minimum of 20 grams every day and boys to be gaining a minimum of 30 grams every day, but they shouldn't be dropping down the centiles. So when we looked at the centile charts there, and I'm just looking to see, I don't know whether you've had a boy or a girl, Grace, but I know it's going to be back to front and I'm very sorry about that, but you can see the lines on there. So we expect a baby to follow a line or stay within either side of it. We don't want them dropping. It's very much a case of how old is your baby, Grace, and sort of what's happening. If you're under 6 weeks, then by all means give us a call in the infant feeding team. Your baby's under 6 weeks, and we'll have a chat with you and see what's happening. If your baby's over 6 weeks, perhaps you could give your health visitor and have a chat with them and see what they suggest. But we don't want babies disappearing down. We want them to sit somewhere around a line. I say they don't have to be exactly on the one they're born on. Some babies settle slightly lower and some babies go higher, but as long as they're following a line. So I think it very much depends on the situation, Grace, and perhaps we need a bit more information if that's all right. Charlotte, I'm so sorry. I know you emailed me the other day and I haven't had 2 minutes to get back to you. I've been off and then come back and it's been manic, but you've said, hope I'm okay. I am, thank you very much. And I'm sure Naomi's having a great time. She's on holiday. So, all right, so lovely to hear from you, Charlotte. Emma has said, my daughter is 8 months old, breastfed but has been enjoying solid. Some days she's only taking 2 feeds from me during the day but still does feed frequently during the night. Is it worth me trying to offer express breast milk in a cup during the day, or is it maybe just a phase? I think it's probably just a phase. You could try express breast milk in a cup. I mean, as long as her stools are nice and soft still and she's not dehydrated, won't worry too much, because it sounds like she's probably making up for it at night. But she'll probably come back for a bit more going forward. Sometimes babies do end up self-weaning themselves, and I know many a case where a baby's gone, okay, I've had enough. I'm not saying that's what's happening here, Emma, but I'm just saying that at some point babies suddenly go, I've had enough. And I have known of a 9-month-old who said she'd had enough, and we couldn't persuade her to go back, which was really sad. But just to say that, if that did happen to anyone listening, then remember that you've done your job. You've been brilliant. You've given your baby what they were looking for. You've met their needs. So they've been very lucky to have you doing it for that period of time. But I think, Emma, your daughter's 8 months, she's feeding lots at night. I wouldn't be too worried as long as she's, her stools are still nice and soft and her wee is not concentrated, then she's probably getting what she needs. But you could try a cup, because obviously that's the next stage, and see how she gets on with it. But worth a try. It might be fun. Leanne said, hi Alex, I hope you're well. Lyra is now having 3 meals a day and loves her food. We're still breastfeeding and loving our breastfeeding journey. Sometimes she goes 5 hours between breastfeeds. Is this okay? I fought so hard to get my supply to where it is. I don't want to lose it. Am I right in thinking that it's fully established now and I shouldn't worry too much? Yes, pretty much, Leanne, and congratulations to you, and how wonderful she's enjoying her food. Isn't that lovely? We tend to say no more than 6 hours between expressions or milk removal, so whether it's a breastfeed or expression. So we tend to say 6 hours, so she's still within that. I mean, I would go with, do you feel full? Do you feel the need to remove some milk? Keep it moving. The fact that you've got this established milk supply, should she then come back to start looking for more over the next few days, because she goes, oh, I do want a bit more than having these big gaps, then she will push your supply back up again, because you've been there already. It is established. You know, I can think of cases where babies have needed to, well, gone to the breast much more, not been terribly well, not wanted food, not wanted solid food, and then gone back to the breast, and over a matter of days the milk supply has gone, you know, right back up to where it was before, and before the baby was having solids as well. So Leanne, I don't think it's anything to worry about, but I would go with, if you're feeling full, take some of it off, because it's that feedback inhibitor of lactation. It's the protein that builds up in the breast. If the milk isn't being removed, then actually it starts to dampen down milk production, and you don't really want that. And so it would be better, if you think, oh, I'm feeling full, take a bit off and see how you get on. But how exciting, how lovely, and how amazing that, you know, you're in this situation after, you know, not easiest of starts. Elian said, that was really helpful, thank you. I'll make sure to look at those resources when I get to 37 weeks for collecting the colostrum. You can look at them at 36 and start having just a little practice, but 37 you can start collecting, because we don't worry about it then. So lovely to have that. And a great question, I'm sure others were thinking the same. Grace has said, we were in earlier with 7-week-old James. Oh, yes. How frequently should we weigh to check? So it's that, Grace. Sorry. I think I need to have, I didn't look at his chart when I spoke to you earlier, so I might give you a call back afterwards if that's all right, and we'll have a look. His last weight gain, the last week, was really good, but let's have a quick peek. So Grace, I will give you a call after I come off, and we can have a plot his weights on the graph and see where he is. But your last, because we did a weight today, didn't we, and you've done a weight on Monday, they were really good weights. So if you can maintain that volume of milk going in him, you're going to keep that weight gain going, which was fabulous. But we can have a chat, that would be really good. Charlotte said, if I had Von-2s last time, can you opt for this again whenever I have another baby, or defo will pick the JR again? Well, I'm glad you're going to pick the JR again, Charlotte, and that's really good. You wouldn't choose a Von-2s. A Von-2s is only offered if it's needed. It's used when the baby needs a bit more help to be born. So sometimes it can be that mums have just literally run out of puff to push anymore, or you know, the baby just needs a bit of help to get out. It isn't something that one would choose. It's something that a doctor would offer if they felt that it was needed. So it's not something on, you know, that you can come in and say, I want a Von-2's delivery. It would be only if it were necessary that it would be offered to you, Charlotte. So, and normally what happens, if you have got as far as being able to have a Von-2's birth, the likelihood is next time you won't need to have anything. You've given birth to a baby vaginally, your body knows what it's doing, and it tends to remember quite well, if you do it within a reasonable period of the last baby. So the likelihood of you needing another Von-2's is very slim, Charlotte. The likelihood is you'll just do it all on your own this time without any help. So, I've whipped through those questions. No further ones at the moment. Okay. So I think we'll go back over the stomach sizes and things, and just because, you know, Elian said about the colostrum, and just to say that when you're doing colostrum, I'm just picking up some bits from in front of me. So I mentioned already, oh, more popping up, I'll come back to those in a second. So just remind you that when a baby is first born, their stomach is absolutely tiny. So this is a tiny weeny marble. Now I said about the volumes go up really quickly. So this is day 01 and this is day 3. You can see a big difference already. And then we move on up to this. So this baby's tummy has really grown. Oh, there goes my marble. So we're looking at those volumes of milk increasing, and they increase because you're removing it. If you ask for the milk, you produce it. Milk supply is driven by milk removal. But in those early sort of days, we're using, if you were at home, could use a spoon, but here in the hospital we tend to use a syringe, and this is a 1 ml syringe, and a mum would be hand expressing at her breast, and she'd be collecting it. And Elian, if you were going to be doing it at home with your antenatal collecting, then you would be doing this too. You're going to get find yourself in a nice comfortable place, keep yourself warm, maybe do a bit of massage, visualize that baby that you're expecting, think about that baby, maybe feel the baby moving. That gets oxytocin flowing. Then make a C with your fingers, and you're going to work your way back from the nipple. Let's see if I can see it, back from the nipple until you can feel that it's lumpy and bumpy under your fingers. So when you're here, there's not much resistance. As you go back, you'll find some resistance, and that's where you want to be. You don't want to be here because there isn't anything there. This is where you want to be. And you're going to anchor your finger and thumb on the breast in a C with the nipple in the middle, and you're going to bring your finger and thumb in and hold. Naomi says a pinch. It's thinking about really putting pressure on like that. You're not sliding forwards, you're not, because that will make you sore. You are literally just coming in and hold. And then little droplets will collect eventually. They may take a while, and it may not happen the first time you do it, but eventually they start to collect, and you can collect them with a syringe. The video shows it really well. The mother that we had, who we filmed, did a fantastic job of showing how to do the hand expressing and collect at the same time. So that's thinking about those tiny weeny amounts and what we collect in a minute. As I say, if you're at home, it could be a spoon. It doesn't have to be a syringe. We use syringes because they're clean and they're here, and they store the colostrum really well, and we can hand it over and it doesn't spill. But at home, you don't need to use that. Right, I definitely saw some more questions coming. Let's see if I can see what they were. Right, oh, there were a fair few more. Lovely. So Jessica has said, my little one is about to turn 1. He has 2 breastfeeds a day, morning and evening. I now wish to stop breastfeeding, so should I replace these with cow's milk, and if so, how? So often that last, I'm going to start with the last one because that's probably that's the easy one to start with for the moment. Often that evening one is all associated with going to bed. And what we would normally recommend is that you change the bedtime routine. So at the moment you probably have a nice routine, maybe you do a bath, put in pyjamas, read a book, and then have a feed. But maybe daddy does it instead. So you just change it if that's what you want to do, if you want to stop feeding now. You just change what you're doing so the expectation for a feed isn't there so much. And in the morning you could be trying a cup. And again, if it's bringing baby into bed with you, maybe for the moment just changing what you're doing, so they're not expecting a feed, because obviously your baby's being fed morning and night, and the rest of the day they're coping very well. You could, if they're happy with a cup or a bottle, you could have that instead. You maybe could start with giving them express breast milk in that bottle, if you're able to express, before offering anything else, and then you could go on to cow's milk. But once they're a year, yes, they can go on straight on to cow's milk. You don't need anything else. And this is another opportunity to say, I know that so far it's all been about breastfeeding, but follow-on milks and all those sort of things that you see advertised, they're not necessary. If you're giving formula milk for any reason, it only needs to be first stage formula milk for the first year of life, and after the first year of life, cow's milk is just fine. So save your pennies and just use that. So Jessica, I think the way of removing those feeds is to change routines, so that your baby's not expecting it anymore, and you could try offering in a different format, maybe your milk initially if you can express, and then go, yes, cow's milk would be just fine. So good luck with it. It's an end of an era. You have to see, it can be quite emotional for the mums when they stop. So Leanne said, thanks, very reassuring. I'm still expressing to donate to the milk bank and also to build a freezer supply for when I go back to work. Well done you. That's amazing that you're giving to the milk bank. And how one of you got excess? Emma said, thank you, Alex. Yes, I'm hoping she isn't self-weaning just yet. I'm not ready. We'll just keep offering the breast to her when I can catch her now. She's crawling and so busy. Yeah, it's catching them and not making a battle. And it's the same at any point in feeding. You know, when we're looking at newborns who are being reluctant to go on the breast for one reason or another, and it could be even as something as simple as they've had a forceps delivery and they don't want their head touched. So it's trying to not make it a battle. Keep the breast a positive place at all times. The fact that she's feeding lots at night is so reassuring, Emma. So I think, yeah, you know, keep going. And the likelihood is if she's really happy feeding at night, she's not self-weaning at this stage. But just saying, you know, you've done a fabulous job. Oh, Charlotte says Alicia says hi. I'll say hi to Alicia. Frederica Slater says, can I have a feedback at home or in the Spires? Frederica, I'm from the infant feeding team, so if you could ask your community midwife, or if you could go on to the Ask the Midwife sessions, which I think are restarting, that would be a great place to go. I don't have the most up-to-date information when it comes to things like VBACs and etc. I'm afraid, as I'm infant feeding, and I would hate to give you the wrong information. So Frederica, can I signpost you to your community midwife first and foremost, and she'll be able to, like as you said, thank you, they'll be able to help you. That would be great. But so there we were chatting about stomach sizes and things, weren't we? We have I'm going to see if I can find the picture that we use. We use it for training for staff, but we also use it with mothers. Oh, there it is. So this is a picture, and again the writing's going to be absolutely useless for you, but you can see the change in size there. You can see it goes from a cherry to a walnut to an apricot to an egg. I was chatting to a mum this morning in breastfeeding clinic, and we were talking about the volume of milk she's producing, and she's producing a lot of milk, and she was concerned that the volume would have to carry on going up, and she's producing the volume to fill this. So we think on average most women will produce about 750 mils. She's actually producing a bit more than that. So what I said to her, reassured her, was that that's not the case. So the milk that you produce continues to change all the way through the time that you are lactating. So when your baby is first born, it's colostrum. It's chock-a-block full of all the protection that your baby needs in the first few days, weeks, months of its life. It then continues to change its profile. So mums who have seen already will see it goes from colostrum, which is thick and gloopy, tiny weeny amounts, and then somewhere between days 3 and 5, when your milk comes in, it starts to get lighter in colour, it gets more volume, and it's much less sticky. And that's when we would be thinking about going on to using a pump if a mother's expressing. After that, it goes into mature milk, and then it becomes much whiter in colour, although it can be a complete spectrum of colours. We know breast milk can be anything from sort of like bluey, greeny colour through to almost like dirty dishwater, but it's still perfect. Cow's milk has loads of casein in it, and that reflects the light back, so it makes it look really white. Ours has less, so our milk doesn't look as white, but it's still totally perfect for your baby. So through that period of time, this is constantly changing, and as your baby's growing, the constituents of the milk change, but the volume doesn't. Once you hit your maximum, and as I say, on average it's about 750, once you've hit that maximum, the volume doesn't change. It doesn't keep going up. It's what in it changes to meet the baby's needs. So mothers who get to sort of like 3 and 4 weeks and are concerned that their baby's going to need even more milk, they're going to have to produce even more, we reassure them and say, no, you're there. You've done what you need to do. You've established your milk supply. Like Leanne was saying about she has an established milk supply. It's there, it's established, and you'll carry on producing that volume of milk as long as you keep asking for it. And you can get it back up again if it drops down, as we mentioned earlier. So thinking about that, you know, it's an amazing product, constantly changing to meet the baby's needs. Right down to the fact that if you come into contact with someone who's got a bug and they breathe on you, you start to produce antibodies within about 20 minutes. The antibodies go into your milk and the baby is protected. And that's why we try and keep mothers and babies together at all times. We try not to separate mothers and babies. And that's why, you know, when you're here in the hospital, your baby is right next to you. And I know you're tired, you know, and actually it's really tough. but it is the right place for your baby. We shouldn't be. In the olden days, they used to take the babies out, but actually that is not good for your baby, and it's not good for your milk supply. So keeping you and your baby together is the absolute best place to be. Just looking again, I can see Alicia's, Charlotte's put another one on. So Alicia is getting better at walking. She can walk just holding one-handed, and her confidence is building to walk unaided. We've literally watched Alicia grow up. It's so sweet. She's very sweet. Yeah. So any further questions? I'm just aware of the time. It always makes a difference when there's just the one of me. Naomi will be filling all the gaps. So just seeing. So we've talked about stomach sizes, we've talked about how the milk changes, we've talked about antenatal colostrum harvesting, all the documentation. So I mentioned about hand expressing. I had a conversation with someone today about pumps. There are numerous pumps out there. If you're expressing to meet your baby's needs, it is usually easier to have an electric double pump. It can be quite hard work to have a single pump. But because you can order pumps online so quickly these days, there's no need for people to rush out and buy a pump. You know, actually our community midwives do have some pumps they can lend out that will tide you over whilst you work out what you need if you are having to pump. Now, you know, the hope is that you have your baby attaches, your baby feeds well, and you never have to pump. But there are some babies that struggle a little bit more, the mum struggles a bit more, and that's when we would be talking about pumping, because we want to secure the milk supply. We want the babies to, you know, we want to be able to make sure that you've got the milk supply there to supply your baby. And that's done in those first 2 weeks. This is when I talk about establishing a milk supply. The first 2 weeks are absolutely crucial. So what you're doing every day over those first 2 weeks will have a big impact on your established milk supply. So keeping your baby close, skin to skin, in the first hour or so two at birth is really beneficial. If your baby feeds on one breast, hand express off the other maybe, and just get that stimulation going. We often find mums say, I've got more breasts, I've got more milk in my left, and you go, which side did you feed on in the delivery room? The left. Then we often see that there's a bit of a correlation going on there. So if you are feeding on one side, maybe hand express on the other. If your baby's struggling to attach for any reason, or your baby's sleepy because they're jaundiced, get hand expressing, get removing that milk. Tell the body the baby is here, tell the body you need that milk, because our bodies are very clever. They don't waste energy doing things they don't need to do. So they're not going to your body doesn't make milk unless you ask for it. So it's a case of making sure that you tell the body the baby has arrived, whether the baby's right next to you and just not attaching or is too sleepy, or the baby's on the special care baby, you know. Get that milk moving, and the more you get that milk moving, the more milk you'll produce, to the point where you can be, you know, donating to the milk bank if you wanted. But as long as you've got enough milk for your baby, that's all you need. So Charlotte's just popped another comment up. Thanks for your support though throughout our daughter's life, and I'm learning every day to become a better mum. I think you're all lovely mums. You're all wonderful. Any further questions? Say it's always different when it's just me. It's just a bit more challenging to fill the hour. So talked about stomach sizes. So Naomi and I have been working on doing some mini videos to go alongside the other ones. So hopefully we'll get those up soon. And we, as you know, anyone who's been watching these sessions before, we use these pictures a lot. They are so fabulous. Because they really help with positioning attachment. So I'm just going to run through that basic positioning attachment. It's thinking about starting nose to nipple. So a baby wants to be nose to nipple. The baby then goes, oh, I want to feed, so they tip their head back and they end up upper lip to nipple in that position. So that's this position. And the other one that's really good is this one. Such a brilliant picture. Now the next stage is that the baby opens its mouth and the mother pushes them from back down here. So they go from there to there to there. Now please note my hand didn't move, so my breath, as in the breast, doesn't move. The breast stays still, only the baby moves. And that's really, really crucial. So often when we meet mums and they're having problems with feeding, you'll find the breast and the baby are both moving. And the way I describe that is that if that's the baby's mouth and this is the breast, then if you've got two moving parts, the likelihood of getting it right is really slim. You keep the breast still and you bring the baby to the breast, and they're much more likely to get it right. And when you're really trying to get this with that nipple just under the upper lip, so that the nipple can go under the lip and to the back of the mouth where no damage will be done, because that's what's happening with the tongue. If that happens, then you're going to be comfortable, feeding will go well, the baby will remove milk, drive your milk supply, and everyone will be happy. If it goes into the middle, and now that might happen, you could have lined the baby up and then you hook the baby over, or you could line the baby up and you move your breast down. So if either of those two things happen, the nipple ends up in the middle of the mouth and the baby does this. And that's why mums get really sore. And as I mentioned with hand expressing earlier, we don't want to be here, we want to be right back here. So if the baby's only got a little bit of breast in its mouth, it's not milking the breast. So not only will you be sore, the baby will not get much milk, and they will not drive your milk supply. So the end result will be a baby that is hungry, a mum that is really sore, and the milk supply won't be there. So positioning and attachment is absolutely crucial. Getting it right. So thinking upper lip to nipple, let the baby take the breast right to the back. And it's the baby that moves and not the mum. So what we end up with, what signs that you can see that are good, is this baby's on really nicely. So you can see the chin is indenting the breast. You can see the nose is free. It's not in against the breast. It's not buried. This mother's areola is not very dark, but there is more areola up here than there is down here. And that shows us that baby went on because the nipple would have been there. So it's taken in a lot more from underneath. If you could see this baby sucking and swallowing, the cheeks would be full and round, so they'd be out and not in. So you're looking for that to be full and round. And you're looking for that baby to do nice, big movements, big sucks with swallows, big sucks with swallows. And that's what you're looking to see. And the baby should feed somewhere between 5 and 40 minutes and then come off on their own. I can see we've got another question. It's Elian. You don't need to apologise. She said, sorry, me again. No, delighted it's you again. So when it comes to collecting the colostrum before baby's here, do I just get syringes to put it in and then freeze the syringes? Do I then have to take the frozen ones to hospital when in labour? From the things I've read, say that baby only needs the express colostrum if there's something not right when she's here. Like I say, happy to look at these resources though, and I'm sure I'll find all the answers. Elian, so yes, the norm is that you would express and freeze it. So if you've got some that, let's say you go into labour and you've got some that you've done in the last 24 hours or last few hours, you can keep that, because you can keep colostrum at room temperature for 24 hours, then it can go in the fridge for 5 days. So, you know, from that point of view, if you've got some recently expressed and you haven't yet put it in the freezer and you go into labour, then you can keep it out. Don't worry about freezing it. Once frozen, it needs to be used within 12 hours. So we have a bit of a problem because mothers bring quite a lot in, and it maybe makes its way to one of our freezers, but then unfortunately, because there's so many handovers, so many changes of staff, that sometimes it goes missing. So we're highly recommending that you only bring in the barest minimum, and if you've got some that hasn't yet been frozen, it's got a longer shelf life. So, and bring very small amounts. If you can get yourself a nice, you know, small cool box with ice blocks, it'll stay cold for a good long time. But once defrosted, it needs to be used within 12 hours. This is the problem we have. So if you don't live too far away, and the ideal situation would be bring the barest minimum in, and if you need more, it comes in. And as you said, it's there as a safety net. Ideally, mums are going to be feeding directly from them, or if they're not feeding directly from them, they're going to be hand expressing. Because if you've got express colostrum, it's there for the emergencies. It's there for, you know, maybe the baby's been born and they need something right now. You know, maybe they've gone to special care baby unit, which does sometimes happen, and they need it right there, and you haven't had a chance to express yet. So that's when it comes into its own. Mothers who've got who have diabetes have spent a lot more time having to check their baby's blood sugars and their own blood sugars. And so sometimes those babies need a bit more than the mother's been able to produce as yet. So they're the sort of mothers that would be highly recommending have a little bit of colostrum, additional colostrum, before they come in. But what we don't want people to do is rest on their laurels and to go, okay, well, I've expressed all this colostrum, I don't need to hand express when I have the baby. I can just give what I've done. But actually, if you do that, you're not asking the body, because it's only what you do once the baby is born that impacts on your supply. So everything you do before does not impact. As soon as that baby's born, the stimulation at the breast, whether it's the baby or hand expressing, is what is going to drive your milk supply. So any colostrum you got beforehand doesn't have an impact. So the risk we run is that a baby's born and somebody says, oh, it needs a little bit more. It's given colostrum that you've expressed earlier and before the baby was born, and you don't express at that point in time, and that will impact on your supply negatively, unfortunately. So it's wonderful to have, it's great to have the skill, but unless there's a risk factor, we don't tend to worry about it too much. So it doesn't replace what you need to do once the baby's born. So, and yeah, you will find all that on the website. You'll find it there. And I'm very happy to have all your questions. Charlotte said, can she email me? Yes, she can. I will try and answer, Charlotte. It's been rather busy, and I'm sorry I didn't get back to you before. Jessica said, my little one's about to turn 1. It's 2 breastfeed today. Oh, I think I've had this one, haven't I? Oh no, first thing on waking and just before bed, and now wish to stop. We answered that one. I wish to stop. Should I replace these feeds with cow's milk? Yeah, we've done that one. It's just come up again, I think. It's just popped up again. So I think I've answered all your questions. We had a period of time where they weren't all coming up, which was a bit of a problem. So if I've missed one, say so. It happened to Leanne a while back. I think we've done all those questions. That's good. If I've missed them, just let me know. And just to say, we've got a new member of our team. I'm not sure if you'll meet her because she's not working Thursdays at the moment. We've got someone called Tamara working in our team now. So we've got Naomi, who you obviously know, and me, and Sarah and Tamara working in the team from now on. And we have a lovely MSW who works in our office called Emma. So if you call us, quite often might be Emma who answers the phone. We're still running our 2 clinics a week, Mondays and Thursdays, but as Tamara isn't able to work a Monday at the moment, she's trying to organise herself, her work days. So at the moment we might offer clinics days, we might offer clinic appointments on alternative days as well, if necessary, just to keep on top of it all. And you know, some people we're talking to in the antenatal period. So if anybody on here is watching and has had a really challenging time, really difficult breastfeeding time, and is thinking, can I face doing it again? Then we'll be more than happy to talk to you, talk through what's happened to you, and then see if we can try and make sure it doesn't happen again or limit the risks of it happening again. So we do quite a lot of antenatal calls. In fact, this week's been very busy on antenatal calls for lots and lots of different reasons, whether that's medical, whether that's because of a previous experience. We have all sorts of reasons that we speak to mums in the antenatal period. So if you're watching this and you're thinking, well, that I would fall into that category, then tell your community midwife and ask them to refer you to us. So we see people with particular needs. So, you know, we know that there's a higher risk chance of mums with polycystic ovaries, for instance, of not producing quite enough milk. It depends on the woman, but if we know about it in advance, we can try and make the best of it that we can and give those mothers the best chance of producing a full milk supply. But if we don't find out about them until the baby's at day 5 or 10 or even beyond that, then actually it can be much more difficult. As I mentioned, milk supply is driven in the first 2 weeks, and if we miss any days in those first 2 weeks, it can make a really big difference on the outcome for a mum. So if you're sitting here thinking, oh, I think I fit into that category, can you get your community midwives to refer you? Contact them and say, I think I would be appropriate for the infant feeding team for an antenatal appointment. So obviously there are some of you that are antenatal, and I've had 3 this week that are due this week, so it's a bit challenging to fit those in because, as I said, we're 4, but we're 3 full-time equivalents, so we're a very small team. But we try and do the best we can to meet everybody's needs. I think I'm going to call it a day. I'm going to have Naomi here next week. There'll be the 2 of us, and then I've actually got another week's leave, so because we'll have to use up our leave before the end of the financial year. So I don't know, I think that we might have a week off again. So, but after that it should be back to normal. So thank you very much to all of you that have put in questions, and Ellen's put another, said thank you up there. Thank you one and all. I hope I've answered the questions appropriately. I hope I've given you hope if you had questions that relied on, you know, continuing, but it sounds like you're all doing a brilliant job. And I'll see you next week. There'll be 2 of us, so it always makes it slightly easier. Have a great week. Bye.